Browsing or searching through standards documents to help you identify and select the standards you want your teaching task to focus on is easy. Remember, a typical focus cluster is made up of one reading, one writing, and one academic content standard from your discipline. It's strongly recommended that you decide on your cluster of focus standards before designing your teaching task. To get started, you should first define the specific grade level and discipline in your module's overview. This will help CoreTools narrow down the universe of standards available. Next, open the Standards section and click Add Standard to reveal the Standards Picker. Note that the picker is divided into two modes that you can toggle back and forth between. The first mode includes college and career readiness standards commonly used in your state. For many, these will be the Common Core state standards, while other users will encounter their state's equivalent set of standards. The second mode includes all additional academic standards. Here, by default, you'll find access to numerous standards documents from your state, but you have the ability to alter jurisdiction to access standards from other states or from other sources. College and career readiness standards, such as the Common Core state standards, are neatly divided between reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language using these tabs. The only standards that will be displayed by default are the standards that correspond with the grade level and discipline that you defined in your module's overview. Since I define my module as 8th grade social studies, by default I'm presented with standards for the 6th through 8th grade band, and I'm presented with reading and writing standards that correspond with the social studies discipline. If these aren't the standards that I'm looking for, I can filter for different grade levels in reading strands here. Note that all ELA and other disciplines default to the informational text reading strand, but you can always override this to see standards for the literature reading strand instead. It's easy to browse through these standards to decide which ones I want to focus on since it's such a limited universe of standards. For standards that have associated substandards, I can expand and collapse the primary standard. When I decide on which standards I want, I can select them by clicking here, and, importantly, I can set them as my focus standards by checking the focus box. While I have the ability to add additional reading and writing standards, as well as speaking and listening and language standards, as non-focus standards, I'm going to avoid doing that for now. Note, however, that sometimes it may be appropriate to add a speaking and listening or language standard as a focus standard. I can see that the standards I selected have been added to my queue down here. Now I'm going to toggle over to Additional Academic Standards to find the content standard I want to focus on. In this mode, the Standards Picker displays for me the filters that are currently being applied, which include my state, as well as the discipline and grade level that I defined in my module's overview. At any time, I can click the filter icon to modify the default filtering. Based on the filtering that's applied, I encounter a narrow list of standards documents to browse. The standards documents that contain any standards matching my filtering will be displayed here, and all standards documents available for my state are always selectable from this dropdown. Whether or not I'm familiar with my state's standards document for my discipline, clicking into it should present an easy-to-understand browsing experience. This hierarchical system displays for me the standards from this document in the expected order, with the added benefit of allowing me to expand and collapse sections and subsections of the document. Note, however, that these filters are being applied, so the standards picker is currently filtering out all standards that, for example, don't match my selected grade level. Once I find the standard that I'm looking for, once again, I just click to add it and check the focus box to add it to my queue. Note that I can also at any time use the search option, which filters the results I'll get even further based on the text that I type in. It'll only display standards or sections from the standards document that contain standards that match the text of my search. Now that I've identified my Teaching Task 3 focus standards, I simply click Add to put them into my module. When I'm in the Standards section's edit mode, I can drag and drop to reorder the standards, modify which of my standards are focus standards and which are not, and I can click into here to delete a standard from my module. In View mode, note that by default, only the module's focus standards will be displayed. If I later add other non-focus standards here, I can toggle back and forth between showing focus standards and showing all standards.